Broadcasting to you on WNN 1470 AM and TrentoVision.tv from the world's leading think tank laboratory, buried deep in an undisclosed building in hostile territory where evil and corruption is exposed. You're about to enter the Tom Trento Show.
General orders, all hands back at battle station.
Tom Trento heads United West, a group that says it defends Western civilization against the onslaught of Islam.
Hey everybody, hi. Friday the 13th, September 13th on this... What the heck is that thing doing here?
How come I'm not allowed to wear green, but you can have a green elephant behind me?
Man, we got, for those of you driving in your car...
What are you talking about?
Just a couple minutes after 5 p.m., for those of you driving in your car on Friday the 13th, we got a gigantic elephant in the room. It is the biggest elephant I've ever seen in the room. Today's show addresses the elephant in the room, and the elephant we're talking about occurred 2 days ago in Venice, Florida. United West went over there. I was one of the speakers in a 9/11 memorial service. I spoke for 16 minutes out of 2 hours. I addressed the elephant in the room, Islam, and the people in Venice.
And
some
the
of
crowd
them.
went wild.
The media, well, the crowd loved it.
Yeah.
The media and some of
And
the
the
elected
political
officials
elites.
went nuts.
Yeah.
You're going to listen right now to David Hackett, one of the editors of the Sarasota Herald Tribune. Fascinating conversation. Listen carefully. Be sure you listen to the whole thing. We have a very interesting close. Watch this. I hear.
Hi, this is David.
Hi, David. This is Damon. I just spoke with you.
Yeah.
With Tom Trento's. I have Tom ready to speak with you.
Okay.
David?
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, Tom Trento here. David, we're recording our show for broadcast, and we have a 50,000 watt radio station, internet TV show. So we're on camera right now, and full disclosure, there's 4 of us in the studio, and we all were at the event, and we basically just had a couple of questions, trying to get the record clarified and find out what's going on. Actually, I called Shelby to find out what the protocol was for correcting errors of fact in your publication. And what are those? What is the protocol?
Oh, great. Well, our standard procedure is to correct any errors of fact and to do so as quickly as we can. And so if there are any, please bring them to my attention. So far, nobody's brought it to my attention. So
Okay.
I'm glad to hear if there are any.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was the time that the amount of time that I spoke, quotes attributed to me that I never said. I mean, some serious stuff. Apparently, there were speakers who came after me who made statements, and in our conversation with Shelby, which we have a record of, she said she was hurrying and writing, on a hot day, and maybe didn't get all the facts straight regarding who said what. So she attributed statements to me that the record shows they were never made, and a couple of things.
Let's take it one step at a time here, if we could. First off, how long did you speak exactly? I think we said about 30 minutes.
Yeah, where'd you get that number from?
I think she was there. That was her estimate. I think the tape that you guys put up there, it looked like you talked about 30 minutes. I don't know. Tell me how long you did talk.
Well, in the future, all you have to do is look at your watch when I start and when I end, and you can know exactly instead of thinking what it looks like. I spoke for 16 minutes out of a 2-hour program, and you spent with your newspaper, 99% of the time dealing with that issue, which I understand. It's the sensational stuff you're looking for. I understand that.
No, I don't think we were looking for anything sensational, sir. I think that you were introduced as the, I'm not sure exactly what the term was, but you were considered one of the top speakers at the event.
Yeah, I was. I have an expertise in this area. Yes, I was. And again, this was another issue we discussed with Shelby. She was responsible for the factual writing of the news articles, and then opinion pieces came out, which were negative about what we were doing. Which again,
may I interrupt you?
Oh, sure,
please,
yeah,
just I'm trying to get this in my own mind. by opinion pieces, do you mean the comments on the articles or the actual opinion piece that ran on the editorial page of the Herald Tribune?
Yeah, no, we wanted to know who wrote the opinion piece, and she didn't know.
That would be
She said,
by our editorial board. We have an opinion section of the paper that's separate from the newsroom. We don't actually interact with them, or certainly tell them what to write in any way.
how do they? Where do they get their information from?
They get their information sometimes in a variety of ways. Sometimes they're actually at events or do their own interviews, or sometimes they're reacting to events that have been publicized.
And were any of the folks that wrote that at the event?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Were any of the folks who wrote, what do you have, like everybody writes a sentence? How do you write an opinion piece? I don't understand how the process works.
That's a good question. An opinion board is usually comprised, it can be a variety of things. Some newspapers do it differently than others, but it's a group that is responsible for the opinions. Usually one person writes it, but they agree on what to say, and represents the paper.
Was this done, were any of those people...
This is Mark speaking now, somebody else speaking.
I'm sorry. Was anybody at the, who was on the opinion board, were they actually at the event? Because
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Okay. I have one fact-checking problem that they had that the original writer of the article wrote, and they talked about the hate group designation from the SPLC. Mm-hmm. Did the reporter state? I keep forgetting her name.
Shelby.
Yeah, Did Shelby? We talked with her about that. She said she never followed up to find out why that we were designated as a hate group organization. Because I've actually personally have tried to find out why they listed us as a hate group. Try to find our criteria of how they listed us as a face group, what their methodology is for determining what a hate group is or is not, because I think that's very important.
Well, let's ask, he's the editor. You're the editor of the paper,
Well,
correct?
what I'm saying, my question is...
why the Southern Poverty Law Center categorized the United West as a hate group?
Right, because I think that's a very...
question specifically, I imagine the reason that they did it, I don't know for sure, but I mean, I believe the guy's name is Potok. His remarks about your group
right.
sort of expressed what I would assume would be the reason why.
Well, but did anybody at the paper actually go and verify why and his methodology, or why he actually listed that? Because we can't find it.
No, I don't know.
Well, yeah, David, what do you think, what would be the criteria for you to determine what a hate group is? We're having a hard time understanding what that means.
Well, I would assume that it involves a level of bigotry, and
did you
attacks
experience that
on
bigotry?
Either
right.
either a religion or a race of people, and I think that's been how the Southern Poverty Law Center has distinguished these groups in the past.
You think, but you don't know. Is that correct?
No, I don't know.
Okay,
I mean,
but your paper. This is Tom speaking again.
I've not interviewed them. I haven't asked them directly. No.
Right. Well, don't you think that might be a criteria before you cite them as a source for designating other people as a hate group? That'd be like talking to someone on the street.
Well,
says,
no,
yeah, he's a hater.
I actually would disagree with you there. I think the Southern Poverty Law Center is a fairly reputable group.
How do you determine that reputation, sir?
Because it's done a lot of work in this area that has been widely acknowledged as accurate.
But you have no understanding of the methodology of how they determine hate groups, do you? Or you said you did not?
Well, as I said, I would assume that they use criteria.
So before you assume something and put it as fact in the paper, don't you think you should check
the
that,
information that the gentleman cited from the Southern Poverty Law Center about your group.
Okay. But don't you think you should fact check that before you go publishing that out?
Well, we fact checked that they classified you as a hate group.
Well, here's the problem.
did.
This is Tom again, David. The problem we're having is we're running into a big circle with you. See, we've done a lot of work.
So apparently my answer isn't satisfying you.
No. I just want you to do your due diligence. That's
my
all.
answer.
I just want you to do your due diligence.
I'm not on
that's all,
trial here. That's my answer.
No, I just want you to do a due diligence.
That's
sir,
Mark.
that's all.
Yeah, CJ has a question for you. Go ahead.
Hi, David.
Yeah, a little better.
Thank you for calling. My name is CJ. My question regarding the section where Mark Potok from the Southern Poverty Law Center is quoted. The pulled quote from Mark Potok of the SPLC is, quote, "They are a vicious, conspiracy-minded, Muslim-bashing group," Potok said. So I guess my question to you as the editor of the paper would be, when you come across a quote similar to this about somebody you're writing an article about, is it your newspaper's policy to reveal that quote to the person in question, in this case Tom Trento, before you publish the quote as a standalone from, according to you, a source that you consider to be reputable? So if
not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think that Shelby, my understanding was that Shelby came back and interviewed Mr. Trento after the meeting, after the event.
She did. She interviewed Tom after the event, and
Not really.
which she didn't really, because it ended up being a group
She asked
discussion,
me
really.
incoherent questions.
Yeah.
And I asked for clarification of the
Which
questions.
she wasn't able to provide.
She wasn't
Yeah.
able to clarify the question.
Yeah.
The one answer I did give her.
But she did not ask Tom anything about the Southern Poverty Law Center
but the
or
one-
Mark Potok. And this was based on an article that was published at 3:02 p.m. on 9/11, and then later modified at 6:22 p.m. on the same day. So there really was time before the article was published and before it was modified to ask Tom Trento, what do you think about
would be your
being
response?
characterized
I'm
as a
talking.
vicious, conspiracy-minded, Muslim-bashing group?
And just let me add one layer to that, David, so you understand some of where we're coming from. I made public statements that a class of individuals, Islamic jihadis, were violent and destructive, and I laid it out very clearly. I don't know if you've watched the tape. And your paper took issue with that, and your opinion piece took issue with that, and you guys went apoplectic. Conversely, you go cite a source you like because you already affirmed to us that SPLC is a valid source for information. He makes a similar statement about another class of people, in this case, the United West, and you say that's a valid conclusion, analysis and conclusion by Southern Poverty Law Center, but an invalid conclusion regarding what Tom Trento's talking about. Now, what's your criteria to determine the validity of what I said versus what Mark Potok is saying?
Well, I think we published what you said, but I also would say that, didn't you go beyond saying that strictly Islamic jihadists? I mean, I believe one of your quotes was that Islam is the enemy, and you didn't clarify that beyond that Islam is the enemy, and I think that is a pretty broad net.
Okay, for you as the editor of the paper to make that statement to me shows the silliness of the way you guys have handled this and the lack of professionalism. There's a 16-minute record.
That, sir? I mean, sir, excuse me. Did you not? Was that not a statement that you made at that 9/11 ceremony? That Islam
If you're
is the enemy?
seriously interested, go look it up, okay? Because
I did watch that, and I believe that's what you said. You know, if I had that wrong, I'm asking for you to correct me on it. I'll go watch it again. But
your question to me was, did I go beyond saying Islamic jihadis, and that I said
No, I
it
asked
was...
you this. Sir, I asked you, I said, did you make the statement that Islam is the enemy?
Okay, but you then asked the second statement, and you never qualified or explained what you meant by that. That's what you just said to me. The first part of to make life easy for you...
Sir, all I'm asking you, did you make that statement or not?
I'm going to explain to you. The first part of your question is accurate. I made the statement, Islam is the enemy, and then I laid out the intellectual, the epistemological, the philosophical, the theological, and the doctrinal basis for my critique of the system Islam, which is a political system with a religious veneer. And I made a distinct differentiation between a system like Nazism and a human being like a German. A system like
do you
Islam...
understand? I mean, and I'm sure you do, but that how a lot of people could take that and substitute the word Christianity as the enemy, Judaism is the enemy. It was taken, and I'm not speaking for myself here, I'm simply reacting to what the comments that we received at the newspaper. It was taken by many people to be a overall indictment of this religion. And
It was an overall indictment, and check the record. First of all, the majority of the 600 or 700 people there were clapping. So when you say a lot of people took it the wrong way, certainly not the audience.
You're right about that. I think we have said that the audience, you did get a very favorable response from the audience. No question about that.
Which is interesting. So there may be a dichotomy between the audience and newspapers. But the fact of the matter is, and you're an educated individual, I'm assuming, you're running a newspaper. For you to...
Well, I am not the head editor here. I am the editor of that section.
Okay.
But I have been the head editor, and I've been doing it for 30 years.
Okay, so you
Well, it sounds like an intelligent individual.
yeah, you're an intelligent guy. For you to make the intellectual, and don't take this in the wrong way, to make the error of saying, let's substitute Christianity or Judaism in there, I'm critiquing a system. Once you apply the same criteria that critiques the political system of Islam to the system of Christianity or the system of Judaism, you'll see Judaism and Christianity pass the test of not being totalitarian, not being supremacist, not being an ideological entity that necessarily must conquer the world. Conversely, the reason, David, why we were all gathered at Patriots Park, because this thing we're debating is living out its doctrine and killing Americans, and their names are engraved on that little granite stone. That's why we were there. Do you see the connection?
Mm-hmm. I understand the argument that you're making, I hope, and I think I also understand why there were people there that maybe perhaps not there, but people that read about it or people that heard about it that reacted that thought this wasn't appropriate for.
Of course, if they read about it or heard about it from a source
From
that
a
is-
slanted story, from a slanted news story
Okay.
to begin with, according to Shelby herself, when we just
Planted
spoke to
source.
her.
Excuse me, who was the planted source?
No,
slanted
slanted story, slanted story. I asked, I asked Shelby specifically about one or two paragraphs and how they were worded and how they were placed in the article, and she said that was not her intention and she had nothing to do with it, and
Well, can we
went
go
on
back
to
on those
discuss the
articles?
fluidity of the process
fluidity of the process.
of putting together an article that is then published in the newspaper or online. And for instance,
And then an unnamed group of people in the editorial section, or finding out from you, that an
Right.
unnamed group in the editorial section who we may or may
Right.
not have been at the actual event.
Right.
You know.
Gave an opinion based upon all those other- yeah.
gave an opinion based
somebody
on the
else.
facts they received from her. So the only thing I could conclude is she didn't turn in the
And
facts
then-
of what actually
And
happened.
then did a follow-up validation
Well,
of
actually,
sorts
I believe
with
that
SBL?
I do believe the editorial department that wrote the editorial watched your speech because they had the video.
Good.
They
Maybe I learned
asked me
something.
whether a video was available. So rather than just base it on Shelby's reporting,
Has
the editorial page editor.
Well,
watched
could I
your
get back?
speech.
Let him finish. This will be a
Can I
show.
follow up on how
Yeah.
the article
Sure.
is put together? Because I think this
Yeah,
is really
please.
critical, because the types of wording and the flow of the article helps sway public opinion, even when it's an article that is supposed to be not an opinion piece. It creates
Okay.
opinion. And so,
Crank him up a little.
in discussing, I'm looking here on page 3 of 4 of an article attributed by Shelby. The title is "Venice Speakers Denounce Islam at 9/11 Ceremony." That's the title of the article. And I guess maybe you're maybe not the copy editor for who determines how the article is titled? Who determines
no, but
how
I
to
think
title
that-
the article?
I think a statement made that Islam is the enemy by
Well, it
a
says Venice.
leading speaker at the rally would suggest the headline's accurate.
Okay, well, it says Venice speakers denounce Islam at 9/11 ceremony, and the only one it quotes is Tom.
Well, no, I
doesn't-
think the original article
it
also
says-
quoted another gentleman who said he agreed with much, and then he talked about Muslims in prison that he had worked with.
Well,
and,
in this article,
it
it
being the
says
cause of the
at least
problem.
3 people were denouncing Islam at this rally, and Tom is the only one who's attributed in the majority of the
And
article.
some of my
But
quotes come from some of the others.
Yeah, and some of his quotes come from other speakers, by the way.
okay, so if you're misquoted at all, we need to
Well,
clarify
yeah,
that.
that's,
Okay,
look,
Can you give me a
well,
quote that
yeah,
was
we'll do a
misquoted?
separate section
the
on that.
building's
but
on
I just
fire.
wanted to give an example here on page 3 of
Sure.
4 in the second paragraph. Following the first paragraph, the last sentence is, the event became charged with anti-Islam messages as well as harsh criticism of President Obama. The next paragraph that follows is, members of the United West handed out books warning of the threat to America and DVDs titled Obsession, Radical Islam's War Against the West. The next sentence after that in the same paragraph is, one woman held a large, quote, impeach Obama sign, unquote, on a totem. So if I'm reading this and I was not there, I would conclude just from the way this paragraph is written that the woman holding a large impeach Obama sign on a totem was actually a member of the United West, because it is not disconnected from anything else. The next paragraph,
I didn't make
the
that
first
conclusion.
sentence begins, Trento told the audience that the Obama administration failed to realize the threat posed by Islam. So you're kind of lumping in there events and people who are not actually joined together at all. And something like this does sway the opinion of people reading what they think is a factual article.
Sure.
Do you agree with that or not? And
Well,
Shelby says that
well,
she,
may
when
I
she
answer- may I
turned
answer
in
that?
her
You asked me whether I
copy,
agree with it or
she
not.
did
Because
not
I
write
don't-
it this way.
All right, we'd like, if you can share your thoughts, David.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I did not, as a reader, honestly associate the woman with the Obama, impeach Obama with the United West people passing out things. I saw it as another member of the audience. Whether she was or not, wasn't a member of your group, I don't know. I didn't make that connection. But I think it did. I think what those 3 paragraphs do suggest is that there was a political atmosphere to this ceremony that was really, I think, a little bit unlike at least any of the other ones in this area or any of the ones we've had around here in the past, where they've been, strictly sort of memorials. So this was different.
That's an interesting question, and we have Damon has a question for you too.
Okay.
How would you have an event remembering 9/11 where 19 Muslim terrorists, following their doctrine, Islamic doctrine, not hijacking the faith, they followed their doctrine. They were true believers. They weren't hijackers. They hijacked the planes. And they flew them into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and one went down in Shanksville. How do you address that issue on the day you stop to remember the travesty and horror of the event and do it in a sort of whatever non-political means? How do you do that?
Well, that's okay. That's a fair enough
Elephant in
question.
the
I think
room.
it's a good one. My opinion on that would be that we certainly condemn acts of terrorism under any form, under any ideology, and certainly the terrorists, the Islamic terrorists, are not unique in this world. You look at Nazis. Do we hold every German accountable for what the Nazis did today and their errors? I don't.
No.
So I think that we do.
No, I said, but we do not hold them
No,
accountable.
no. And that's as someone of Jewish descent. That's a challenge that anyone that would faces. But I think that so we certainly condemn terrorism, and we certainly memorialize the victims. I think where, according to the people that wrote to us and asked for the mayor to object to it and so forth, those people, what they were concerned about is blanketing all Islam under the deeds of these terrorists.
So that was the political part, or was that an uncomfortable factual part?
Well, they just disagreed. They didn't think that Islam, as a religion, was deserved to be blamed or is the enemy. That
But is that a political?
Is
that a political?
blamed, and a faction of fanatics certainly deserves the blame and the condemnation. But to use a broad stroke and paint all of Islam as responsible or as a threat, no, a lot of people disagreed with that.
But and we're getting
That was
sort
your
of
thesis,
we're
wasn't
getting to
it?
the
Is
gist
that it's
here.
not a religion, is that it is a political system to begin with, which you, and you gave.
It is a religion, is it not?
Well, the premise of.
According to people who practice it.
Right,
Well-
the premise, yeah, but we're talking
Well, hang
about
on.
the
Let me get
premise
back
of
to where,
Tom's speech.
let me get back to where I was going with this. The thrust of all of your articles say that the offense, one of the offenses that occurred, propagated by us, our organization, me in particular, was the political component. Now,
Yeah,
in
that's the
our-
title of the editorial.
style of tour. In
Yeah.
our type of work, words mean something. We have to be very precise as national security analysts. And I'm trying to see if stating that Islam as a system that that provides the context for the terrorism, stating that is a political statement, or is that just a factual statement, a statement of opinion or fact? Where does it become political to say Islam is the root cause of all of the terrorism that occurred on 9/11?
Well,
I don't understand how you said that's political.
In fairness to you, I think that does. It is a matter of fact in your mind. Other people would object and not consider that a matter of fact, and that's where the discrepancy comes from.
But how does that become a political
Division.
issue as opposed to a philosophical,
Right.
logical, historical, doctrinal issue? Where's politics come into
Yeah,
this?
because it's your own editorial board that is calling it politics. The title of the editorial in question is Divisiveness Instead of Reflection, Politically Volatile Rhetoric Has No Place at 9/11 Remembrance.
And there was no rhetoric there.
Right. And
Wait,
then
you
below,
did not in
and
Europe.
below the,
Okay.
below the the photo caption is, members of the American Legion participate in, and it's put under quotations, memorial ceremony, as if it weren't a memorial ceremony. Wednesday in Venice that honored victims of the 9/11 attacks and fallen military heroes. Unfortunately, the one-sided, overtly political messages of some speakers dominated the observance. So your editorial board at your paper is calling the speeches political, and so Tom is asking, what is political about what it is that
How do
he
you
said?
define your
How
use
is
of the term?
political being defined?
Well, again, I mean, maybe I'm not saying it clearly enough or
Okay.
eloquently enough, but I think that from my vantage point, from the vantage point of a number of people who commented, including the mayor, including some of the fellow speakers who were appalled by what was said, it did enter that realm in their minds. And you can dispute that perception, and you are disputing it, but that is their perception, and that was certainly the perception of the editorial board, which is why they wrote that article.
That's if that's the perception of people who were there, or people who were in attendance, or people who were also speakers of the event, then you're quoting them in the article, and they're backing up why it is that they think these statements are political.
It raises
But the
a much larger
editorial board is not doing that. So
Well, no, but
so
they're
that means
speaking
that
with their
your
own voice. They're
paper
speaking
is. Do you
Okay,
see?
well.
That your
Wait,
paper.
David, you had a question? We have one other question here.
I just wanted, right off, speaking from the same article, divisiveness instead of reflection. The very first paragraph, it says, the quote, memorial ceremony, unquote,
Yeah.
Tuesday at Patriots Park in Venice
Yeah.
was woefully short on remembrance of 9/11 victims and their survivors, but painfully long on diatribe.
Is that the opinion article?
That's
This
the
is- yes.
opinion article.
Now, first of all, this is so blatantly poor journalism. Tom spoke for 16 minutes out of 2 hours. And to
Which was
say
2
that
hours of reflection.
okay, So one, that could not be any less accurate. Okay, so apparently whoever was on your editorial board was either not there or blatantly, purposefully dishonest.
But Damon, it's opinion.
But no, 16 minutes out of 2 hours is not an opinion. That's a math thing.
No. We're
16
talking,
out of
That's true.
120
Good point.
is math. You cannot say that that's not. Okay, now, going to the very end of the article, going to the end of the article, it says, but the issue at hand wasn't too much political correctness. The problems were the lack of good judgment in staging an event in a public setting and the failure of a, quote, memorial ceremony to emphasize reverence, remembrance, and reflection. So again, you're getting back to the fact that this was politically, in your opinion, politically dominated, when the fact is, if you look at the tape, the majority of it was about remembrance. And second of all, I'd like to go out of the sheer incorrectness of this article. I would like to ask you, if 9/11 is not the day to bring up the topic of Islamic, to bring up the topic of Islamic terrorism, what day out of the other 364 would be? I would think that 9/11 is the absolute one day of year that it is absolutely mandatory to discuss why this happened and why it is still happening and what needs to be done. So for anyone on your editorial board to question the appropriateness of this, I think they need to check the appropriateness of their job title.
Okay.
Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, please comment on the inaccuracies in reporting yes.
David, Damon is our producer. He was there for the whole event, working some of the cameras.
Okay. So for what I'm hearing right now, I mean, the inaccuracies that you're citing are the time that we falsely characterized how long you spoke.
Well, David,
You falsely characterized
Let's check that ourselves. I mean, I'm not saying we didn't make a mistake there. If we did, we will correct it.
That's not a mistake. That is a blatant misrepresentation.
David, let me share this.
Well,
with you.
other speakers.
David, let me share one thing.
Also,
Let me share one thing
ahead.
with you before you go on. I sat up front and I spoke for 16 minutes out of 120. So what's that? 148, 44, something like that.
Yeah.
And for those 100 and whatever minutes in the 2 hours, probably 90% of those, I had sunglasses on, probably 90% of those minutes that I sat where I didn't speak, tears were rolling down my eyes listening to the other speakers, looking at senior citizens dressed in their VFW uniforms, ready to serve the country once again, watching flags fly at half-mast, hugging the mother, the Gold Star mother, Mrs. Mills, who lost her young 21-year-old son who had 3 stripes on his shoulders. You know what kind of individual you have to be to get 3 stripes on your shoulders at 21 years old? I had to walk into the bathroom 2 or 3 times to get more paper towel to dry my eyes. From my vantage point, I was so moved emotionally by that event, that program, that it changed me as an individual. Your organization is absolutely remiss, and you can learn a lesson here for the future, to take the 16-minute deal, and you can justify it all you 13%, and to miss the life-changing moment that you had in your town, that your paper would have excelled at telling that story and featuring those people, but you chose the cheap excitement, and you're less for it. It's that simple.
You made it dirty and cheap and sensationalized and not what it was about at all.
But go ahead. You can share your thoughts.
That's certainly your opinion, and obviously you're entitled to that, and you're making it forcefully to me. But I think the reaction that we received is that what people also felt very strongly about, and the mayor, in fact, said it, is that
the mayor actually
this is
let him finish.
And he was there. We didn't put the words into his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that said he very much thought it was out of bounds. And the speaker that followed you, or one of the speakers that was there, I want to be absolutely accurate on this. I'm not sure where in what order he appeared, but Shelby quoted him as saying he was appalled by it. So this
What about
people
the
had
other
this reaction.
18
Everybody
other
can
speakers,
agree
sir?
that we may have finished this, please. I think most of us,
Sorry, I wanted to talk
virtually
about
all of us, can agree that we have a lot of admiration and sympathy and emotion for the victims and their families and those statements that were said. But what did, I think, bring the story to a larger point was that things were said that were clearly divisive. And not because we made them divisive, but because people who were there felt they were divisive and inappropriate. And we reported that.
Okay,
And
well, my question to you
Let him finish.
on that, do you think that out of 18 who were actually pro our side and 2 who thought it was inappropriate, do you think that should have been told as part of the story?
excuse me, I think we did say in the story that
The
a lot
large
of the,
majority
that there
supported Tom Trento? Did you ever mention that in the story?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Did you ever say the large majority of the speakers? I mean, you quoted 2.
Not to mention the people
Oh
in
yeah,
the audience.
yeah, we did. I think
said
we
the large
quoted a
of the
council member
speakers-
saying you received a rousing applause, or you
Yeah.
roused the audience, and that you did receive applause. Yes.
And did you, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And we quoted another city council member who gave you pretty good marks.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything else? Because we'll wind it up here. Damon, any closing thoughts?
I
or
was
questions?
just,
No,
I was just
I'm-
startled.
David, there's a Damon here, so I'm asking Damon.
No,
I'm going to go around.
I would just feel like the event I read about was not the event I was
Okay,
at.
Good point.
Yeah.
Mark?
Okay.
No, I noticed an overwhelming sentiment, a very, very positive, and I was actually not looking at it from a part of the organization. I was actually looking at it from a camera lens, camera view, and I saw nothing but overwhelming support. And nobody, absolutely nobody came up and said we had a problem with your speech, including the mayor who came after the event to our post-event and said you guys did a good job. So explain that.
Really?
Okay.
Well,
I wonder why he
that's
did-
for
yeah,
the
that's a
mayor
good
to,
point.
that's for the
You
mayor,
know?
I think that's for the mayor to
Maybe he's just being
explain.
political about it, I don't know.
Yeah.
CJ,
that's-
closing thought for David?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'm really disappointed in the editorial board of the newspaper, which doesn't even attribute its opinion pieces to itself. I
board,
think,
yeah.
I mean, there's no byline that says this is the opinion of the editorial board of the Herald Tribune, because then there would be somebody to ask our questions to instead of you. I think the reporting, the headlines, the captions, the opinion piece, I think the order in which paragraphs were arranged, all are designed in a journalistic fashion to portray this event as some sort of
Hate fest or something.
hate-filled festival that was inappropriate for
Okay,
9/11.
wrap it up.
I think that's what the people who were reading the newspaper reacted to and wrote in to oppose, versus I think that the people who are writing in and complaining to you were not there. I think the beautiful aspects of the ceremony were not covered.
What I
My
would-
personal reaction was, at the end of the ceremony, besides the tears coming down my face, is my immediate reaction was, how could anybody not love this country? When after listening to the speakers, after looking at the reaction of the people who were there to listen and participate, like, what a beautiful, important event it was.
said that when it was
and,
over, yeah.
And I do not see that sentiment reflected in the coverage of this event at all.
Okay. Mark, you have one?
May I say one final thing? 'Cause
Sure.
I
Sure.
really,
I have
really
one,
wrap up
I have
here.
one closing thought for you, but go ahead.
Okay, I just real quickly, as Americans, it's great that we can disagree, and I'm glad to be on your show, and I really appreciate the civility in which you're discussing this. I can understand that you're upset, but you're handling it with a lot of civility, and I hope we are, and I think that's
You
so
are
important. It's missing a lot in America right now, so when that happens, it's always good.
All right, well, here's my concluding
you.
thought.
Well, I just one quick statement is I would appreciate in a future article if you would actually link the actual video, the 2-hour video of the whole event, and let readers make the decision themselves.
They can
if
still do
thought-
that. They can
They
still
can
do
still
that.
Oh, we
do
didn't
that.
do that? I thought
Yeah.
we did that.
No, not the video at all.
I don't know, was it up? It's up now.
Yeah, no, it's been up.
Okay.
I mean, it's just
Yeah,
the
it
other
is, and
posting.
we tried to do that, but it takes you to a YouTube video. That's the one I think we linked to.
Well, why don't you give us
Well,
your
I'm-
email and we'll send it to you.
Yeah,
I'll
we
send it to
have
you.
it. It's,
I have his email.
yeah.
David,
Thank you.
here's,
Oh, by the way,
here's-
thank you for your time, David.
Yeah, we
here's what
really
I would like you to
appreciate it.
take back to your folks. And,
Okay.
you guys, you got a job to do, all of that. I run a nonprofit. No one in this room that you've spoken to or no one that was over there receives a salary. The little bit of money we take in, we use for expenses. It costs us money going over there to
Yeah.
do this deal.
And we pay for
Do
ourselves.
you know how much money, it's a rhetorical question, do you know how much money is in the bank because they publicize it of the Southern Poverty Law Center? You have any idea how much money they have?
No.
Okay, you ready? They have in their bank, you can go on their website and they laugh about it and they brag about it. They have $258 million as a war chest to push their leftist agenda. They are a fundraising machine by creating an enemy, in this case, people that hate Muslims. I don't know if you heard the last part of my presentation. I made an offer to any Muslim anywhere for sanctuary. We'll give them food, shelter, clothing, and save them from the destruction of a lot of the totalitarian Islamic families that they're in. Southern Poverty Law Center, that you cited as a source, is a cash machine. That's one thing. But here's what I'd like you to bring back to your folks. I think you had a unique moment in history that you lost. Here's why. You had Muhammad Atta and 3 of his buddies living in Venice and training in Venice. And as a result of their training, they killed a bunch of people on Flight 11, American Airlines 11, North Tower, first one to hit. You had an opportunity 2 days ago to honor those people that died on that day and to honor those people who died subsequently, who, by the strength and will of Gene Sweeney, one man, with help from others, erected that beautiful monument and is engraving names for perpetuity of individuals that volunteered to go give their life for this great country. You had an event in your town, and your paper was the paper of record for that town. And guess what? Instead of honoring those who died on 9/11 and those who died subsequently, you dishonored, listen to what I'm saying, you dishonored those who died on 9/11 and those who died subsequently. 2 reasons you dishonored them. Number one, I laid out the cause of that tragedy that resulted in the 3,000 dead and then the subsequent 6,000 or 7,000. I laid out very analytically, professionally, and properly the cause of that problem. You guys distorted what I said. You were simply ill-equipped to understand what I said or do some research. You wanted a quick, cheap, dirty story. You went with it. You dishonor them because you failed on understanding the cause, and you dishonored the dead, your paper of record, because you failed to tell the real story of the effect, of the people whose lives were affected, who were there, sharing their stories that touched every one of us. Your paper, your company, dishonored the dead on that day when you had a tremendous opportunity to honor them, David. Take that back to your bosses, will you?
Thank you. I will
Okay.
do.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Take
your
care.
time, David.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Whew.
I tell you, the ideology.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, we have.
This is our show today, folks.
I know.
Tom Trento, CJ, Mark Damon, we're a little emotional and containing ourselves here. We just spoke with David, what was his name?
David Hackett.
Hackett, who's the editorial director.
No, he's not the editorial director.
What is
He's the editorial director of Apartment.
of a page or something. I guess the
No.
opinion
He's
page. What is it?
He's Shelby Webb's editor.
Okay.
For the Venice section of the newspaper.
For the Venice section.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
he's her boss.
So he's
essentially.
not a member. He's not associated with the editorial board that we were
Okay,
talking
that did all
about.
that. What we did today is the 13th, Friday the 13th. And we're not doing our Jumpin' Juma. Maybe this is Jumpin' Juma.
This is jumping.
Yeah, it's Friday the 13th, and the time, I have no idea what time it is after 5 o'clock.
It's
This is a little-
sometime after 5.
Sometime after 5.
And before
How much
6.
time we have left?
We have 15 minutes.
Okay,
Oh.
so it's 45 minutes after 5 o'clock, or 44 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Reverse. We can do it in reverse.
That's all right. We're,
Do we
we're
want to
fine.
show the
Keep
show
going. Just
opening
keep
now?
going. Keep going. Keep going. We're
But,
fine, Damon. I got it. I
let
don't
me,
think
for those of you who hung in on this very interesting and fascinating conversation, what this show is about, our team went over to Venice, Florida for 9/11, and I was asked to be a speaker at the first annual 9/11 memorial ceremony at Patriots Park in Venice, Florida. Mr. Gene Sweeney, who has been a guest on our show, we've had him
Yes.
here, he virtually single-handedly, he got help from others, but he was the driving force.
Yeah.
He took a 3-year project to find a place in Venice at Patriots Park, build this granite memorial. Maybe we'll show it in our second show. We'll show you pictures, it's a 2-part show. And he's been engraving the names of those who have been killed in the so-called war on terror since 9/11, who primarily are from the state of Florida or have some unique contribution to the war, like the 4 from Benghazi. And so on Wednesday of this week, we went over as a team, and I was one of the speakers. I spoke for 13% of a 2-hour program, 16 minutes. And what I did is I explained the cause of 9/11, Islam as a system, and Islamic Jihad as the methodology from that system, Islam. And I connected it to the effect, which was these parents and everyone gathered today to remember the dead, but and honor the dead. We got excoriated, is that good, by the local press, which is, from what I understand, kind of a left of center paper,
Yeah.
for being, all these sloppy terms they throw out, political, they go to,
Political, divisive,
hate-filled,
hate-filled,
They go-
rants, diatribes.
diatribe, all the great
Yeah.
lexicon of emotive words.
Yeah.
The Sarasota Herald Tribune, because I had mentioned that that we do not, as an organization, the United West, and Tom Trento as an individual, does not hate Muslims. We hate an ideology that seeks, as it's called, the destruction of the United States. Ooh, that's strange territory
Yeah. What
nowadays.
a hater you are for saying that.
And we lay that out very clearly, but obviously the story that got published was we hate Muslims and all of this nonsense, and
What else is in that town?
to validate, they go to the Southern Poverty Law Center
An extreme leftist organization.
and drag out a bogus flim-flam man, Mark
Right.
Potok,
Right.
Yeah.
to say, oh yeah, there's thousands of and they're the worst of the
You are
worst of the
the
worst.
most
We're the
vicious
worst. Yes,
Yeah.
of
we
the
are.
anti.
So what we
Islam.
decided to do, folks, because we have media capability, we decided to interview all the people that wrote the stories, and we're bringing it to you, giving our opinion, our analysis of the failed job that they did. What do you guys think? That was,
Well, I think everybody was passing the buck to somebody else. The reporter was not responsible for the facts, which she gave the editor, who misinterpreted them and wrote a story that doesn't reflect what her real opinions are, but she doesn't have any and won't express them anyway. The editor has nothing to do with the content of what the editorial board determines is appropriate as far as the
Who's on
opinion
first? I don't
policy
know.
of the newspaper. So, like, nobody is accountable to anybody else
It's
for
the
how the
newspaper that
headlines
runs itself.
for how the headlines are written, for how
It is.
for how the actual copy of the article is edited and spliced and put together, so that a supposed news article actually becomes a slanted opinion piece, and neither the reporter, whose facts the piece are supposed to be based on, nor the editor,
was
who's
like-
supposed to be responsible for constructing them and presenting them in a linear manner as
Did you ever chase a
reporting,
greased pig?
are responsible for how it all came out. It's like
Yeah, leave it.
everybody took something threw it into the hopper, and it's a complete fluidic mystery
Mark.
as to the product that came out.
Did you ever chase a greased pig?
I know. That's exactly what it was. They're just slipping and sliding and greasing and went, oh, we're really independent. We're just really, really independent. And we fact-checked our thing with the SPLC, who we really, 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 really
don't know.
trust.
They didn't
about
We
it.
don't
fact-check
know
a
how.
watch
Yeah,
anytime.
we didn't actually fact check how it is that they determine who's a hate-filled, vicious, anti-Muslim bashing group.
Right.
But because they are the SPLC and we respect who they are for reasons which we can't define, we just take them for who they are
They're the
and
experts.
just accept whatever information they give us.
It's good enough for the army. It's good
but
enough for
really,
us.
really, what is so disheartening and really
Sad.
so
Very
sad and bad for the United States and for the people of Sarasota County who rely on this as their newspaper of
I hope
record
not.
is that this is not, the reporting of this event is not what we experienced.
No,
Who
not
who
at
was
all.
that lovely
Let me
young
ask that
lady, that
question.
smart
Let me ask
young
that
girl,
question.
16 years old?
Oh, she was amazing.
Okay,
That
like
she-
the real
she should have
future,
been highlighted.
the
Like,
real future
folks
of
are from India.
America.
Yeah.
Okay, and nothing about her speech. Nothing. No. Where's the interview with her? Where's the interview
And
with the
where's-
parents whose children were
where's
killed?
the Navy SEAL, the 80-year-old Navy SEAL who's done 4,000 airplane
Piece of
jumps?
military history.
Piece
Yeah.
of military history. Where was he coming out and saying, Tom Trento's my kind of guy?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. He made
Yeah,
that
he
statement.
did. He
Yeah.
made
Tom
that
Trento's my
statement.
kind
Let me
of
let me
guy.
go
And-
around.
and I
well, hang on.
just-
See, let me go around. What were your impressions? We're starting to fight the clock here of the day.
They didn't want to talk the whole essence of the
No,
whole...
not this. Not the analysis of the paper's mishandling, but as an American being there for those 2 hours, what was your impressions of the event?
of the event
Yeah.
is that finally someone talked about that big elephant in the room.
Of this thing here?
Yes.
Abdullah, what is this?
That looks like an elephant to me.
An elephant in
But
the
yeah,
room?
but there is no elephant problem here. The elephant problems are in
Yeah, see,
Africa
there's
and
no elephant.
Asia.
There's no elephant now.
There's no elephant, but now there is an
There's no-
elephant. What's the elephant in the room?
Oh, I don't know.
Is that
Maybe-
the elephant named Islam?
That's
Yeah, it's like nobody can say Islam on 9/11. That is the big thing about the whole event.
That's
and that's
amazing.
what you did. You said,
That's
and that's
amazing.
the reason you got such a big rousing applause.
and
that's-
invitations like crazy. To
an
speak all
invitation
over
like
the place.
crazies to speak. Oh my God! Someone's finally has the courage and the wherewithal
To connect the dots.
to connect the dots
Yeah.
and say the truth.
This is not a day of national service to help old ladies across the street or recycle your milk.
Remember that?
Your milk containers, okay? This is serious.
When is it appropriate to talk about the ideology that's causing terrorism?
While
Thanksgiving, 4th of
while
July,
and
New
and
Year's?
if you look at what's happening in the world right now, the president is advocating that we should go to war in yet another Muslim country
Right.
for reasons that he can't define. When
Which we're opposed to.
when multiple sides are fighting against one another, all in the name of Islam, and he wants to drag America into that without actually mentioning the reason why they're fighting each other to begin with.
Yeah.
So isn't it relevant?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that, I mean, they're even calling this opinion piece. They're saying this story appeared on page 6. So they're really,
Yeah.
they're trying to, they're really melding opinion and news because really this doesn't appear to be a true opinion piece. Opinion pieces aren't going to have all the different quotes. You know, this reads like a news story
Right.
with
Yeah.
some opinion in it. It does not read
That's a good point. That's a
like
good
an
point.
opinion
Usually
piece.
this
in
is the
least
editor's
bit.
opinion, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just the paper. It's not, and it was
No, because it was a television station
television
also.
station
Yeah.
and
ABC 7 in Sarasota.
And
Yeah.
one thing
threw-
after
I mean,
another.
What flipped them out, all these people?
Because
The
you
truth.
said Islam.
The truth. You
talked
can't
about
say
that
the
thing
truth.
behind you, Tom.
Yeah.
You talked about that elephant.
I said there's
We're
an
not supposed
elephant
to-
standing on your foot, and they all got, start screaming.
That's the big problem. Nobody, because the political correctness police You can't say the I word because you're not allowed to say jihad in our manuals. You're not allowed. Oh, Fort Hood was workplace violence.
You know, here's another thing.
We're in bad
A few
shape,
weeks
man.
ago at MLK's 50th anniversary of the speech in D.C., that event that was meant to be civil rights and Martin Luther King Jr., they managed to put every LGBT and they politicized that for absolutely everything that had nothing to do with the event.
I Have a Dream
Islam
speech.
has everything to do with this event. This event would not exist without Islam. So for them to question the appropriateness is insane. I mean, and, you know, someone said, oh, what should it be, Christmas? And so I was kind of going through my head, you know what? Let's go through the calendar. New Year's, you could discuss it then, because we have to pray for a healthy new year that we can make it through without Islam destroying the world. You could go to Valentine's Day. People lost loved ones. St. Patty's Day. A lot of Irish firemen and cops were killed. You could go down the line. Memorial Day, 4th
good
of
point,
July.
good point.
Down the line.
Yep.
This could be discussed every day, but particularly must be discussed on 9/11.
Yeah, I think somehow through
Especially
these
in
12
Venice,
years,
where it all started. Go ahead.
somehow this thing has morphed from being a cause and effect very closely, Islamic jihad, killing Americans, we remember the dead, and we're in war, we're fighting them back, to somehow the Islamic jihad part, and this is to the credit of the CARE organizations and all the Muslim organizations, Muslim
ISNA.
Brotherhood, and to the credit of President Obama, there's 7 million Muslims in the world and going. I mean, he's
country.
He's changing public in the country. He's changing public opinion to make a dissection between Islam and Islamic jihad as they're hijacking. Even President
Nothing
Bush.
to do with each other.
Well,
Islam and
I
Islamic
think
jihad.
Hang on, let me get my thought out. Even President Bush made the mistake that
Yeah.
the religion was hijacked.
It's worse than
And
that.
I could understand in one sense where people go, well, you know what, we really don't want to talk about the cause today. We only want to talk about the effect being dead people, and we're here to remember them. The cause, Islamic jihad, Islam has killed people. We're going to leave that alone. We're just going to honor people here. I think if you ask the dead, there's only one? Okay. I think if you ask the dead people, if I got killed and my name was on there for some reason, I'm going to say, would you talk about this stuff on this day, please,
Really, really.
Do us a favor. And I think the point I tried to get across to David was, you had an opportunity to honor these people, you dishonor them on two levels. So what do we got to do? Is that it?
Yeah, just go
Can
ahead
we,
and do a wrap up.
can we do the, can
No.
we put the link up and
Yeah,
let
yeah,
people
for the
know
show.
that they can see the link
Right,
to
right,
the
right.
video of Tom's speech?
Where do they see that?
They say it on youtube.com/The United West. And
youtube.com/theunitedwest.com. You'll see it says 9/11 Remembrance, I think it says. You'll see the video.
2 hour and 1 hour.
And there's also a whole playlist with a bunch of
Okay.
clips on it.
And stay tuned for Monday's show. We're going to have part 2 of this. This is very important stuff. See ya. Bye. Are we saying
Thank
goodbye?
you.
We are saying goodbye with no clock.